Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to America once again and we're going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel a number of times before. When it comes to the home brewery, I would say that these guys are a very old school and very well respected American brewery, mainly known for their West Coast IPAs, but they're also known for still experimenting up to this day. Whereas the Away Brewery are one of the ones that have been gaining a lot of hype in recent times, and they're best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. Now, the beer itself is a style that I very much enjoy, but one that you don't come across all that often anymore. But I would say that this style is most associated with the home brewery in this case, and I've never had an example of this style from the Away Brewery, in fact, so I thought this would make for a really quite interesting review. So, needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to San Diego in California in the very southwestern part of the US, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Alesmith Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Hop Cypher. It comes in at 6.5% ABV, and this one is a West Coast IPA. And it also happens to be brewed in collaboration with Other Half Brewing, who are from Brooklyn in New York, over in the northeastern US. So yeah, this beer was released here in Sweden as part of the Tillfälligt temporary assortment through Systembolaget. And yeah, it is supposed to be very nice actually. So definitely cool to return to Alesmith for what we feels like the first time in a very long time. And I think we did have another half beer not all that long ago, if memory serves me correctly, but I think I still need to do a dedicated other half review on the channel at some point in the near future as well. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see what it has in store for us. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done both from Alesmith Brewing Company and from Other Half Brewing, and we will no doubt add more to both of those lists at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support you give is massively appreciated. And remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. If you go up to the search bar, put your hometown, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever you like in there, and if I've reviewed beers from your local area, they should pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the American playlist, along with many other things. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and we'll start off with Alesmith, since they are the home brewery in this case. So, Alesmith, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in San Diego in the very southwestern part of California on the west coast of the US, and the company was founded back in 1995 by Skip Virgilio and Ted Newcomb. But the first brewery was in Cabot Drive in the Miramar area, and it was equipped with a 15-barrel system, and they also had an in-house tap room up there as well. A little bit later on in 2002, the company was then bought by Peter Zien, who is a certified Grandmaster Level 1 beer judge, and he became the brewmaster. But he'd been a really well-respected and well-known home brewer in San Diego for a long time, and he previously managed his family's home repair business. But at the time Zien purchased Alesmith, they were producing around 400 barrels per year. But the brewery have continually expanded during his tenure, and by 2012 they were producing 15,000 barrels per year, which is about the equivalent of 2.4 million litres. In 2015 they moved to a new 10,000 square foot facility, reading that number wrong, which is a few blocks to the west, fitted with an 80 BBL system, which is about 12,700 litres, and this is one of the, they also have one of the largest beer tasting rooms in California there. But today, their annual output is around 35,000 hectolitres, which is about 3.5 million litres. I'm not sure what it would be in American barrels, but they continue to experiment with lots of new recipes as well, and barrel aging and stuff like this. They've got a very impressive brewery when you look at the pictures of it. But as of January 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 550 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and that will no doubt continue to increase over the next wee while. But yeah, we've had a number of other beers on the channel over the years. One that I do really want to get a hold of though is their Scotch Ale and also the Old Numbskull barley wine. Those are two that I really want to get on the channel at some stage. So we'll see about making that happen, hopefully sometime during 2023. But yeah, as I say, that is all I can really tell you about Alesmith Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, follow them on their usual social media, and if you want to learn more about the different beers, then I would recommend you check out their Untappd page for a wee look at those. So yeah, let's hop over from the West Coast to the East Coast then and go to Other Half Brewing. So, Other Half Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Brooklyn in New York, and the company was founded back in 2014 by Samuel Richardson, Matt Monaghan, and Andrew Berman. So Matt had worked as a line cook and in kitchens for a number of years, and he really got into home brewing during this time and then decided he wanted to go for it and turn brewing into his career. Samuel, on the other hand, studied food science in Oregon with a special focus on fermentation science, and he worked in various breweries before he started up Other Half. Andrew has a background in the restaurant industry, and he was a partner in a number of restaurants before he got involved with Other Half as well. But Matt manages the business side of the brewery, whereas Samuel is the brewery operations manager and is also involved in recipe development as well. But the brewery grew very quickly in their early years because their beers just built such a strong reputation very quickly, and they've got their tap room these days on Centre Street in Brooklyn as well. But in 2018, they purchased the former brewery of Nedlow Brewing in East Bloomfield in the Rochester area, and this has allowed them to get their beers further afield and increase their production volume. And they've been starting a sour beer program there over the last little while, from what I understand as well. But as of January 2023, they've produced 1,600 different kinds of beer, according to Untappd. And when you consider that these guys have been around just shy of 10 years, I think that is a pretty damn impressive number. 160 different beers, and that's what, about 3 beers a week roughly. That is just absolutely crazy. But yeah, like I said to you, Other Half Brewing are one of the ones that have been getting a lot of hype in recent times, and I do hope that I can go and visit these guys at some point this year. That would be pretty awesome. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Other Half Brewing for the moment. Once again, if you want to learn more, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Untappd page to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer. So I'll let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open up. As you can see, the artwork is pretty similar to what we've seen from Alesmith before. I think the last beer I reviewed from Alesmith actually was the collaboration they did with Pizza Port Brewing, if I remember correctly. But yeah, you can see here, this is a 473 milliliter can, which is 1 American pint, and it tells you on the side here, we freestyled with our friends at Other Half Brewing to bring you a double dry hopped West Coast style IPA, jam packed with Strata, Mosaic, and Chinook hops. And it tells you the flavours under that, but we're going to find that out for ourselves. But yeah, we know all of these hops quite well. Strata, Mosaic, and Chinook are all American. Strata is the newest of the three in there. It's going to give you, I think it's about 15% alpha acid you get from that. It's going to give you this kind of melony and strawberry type flavour. Mosaic is going to give you that nice kind of bright tangerine note, but also with a little touch of earthiness. And then Chinook is your old school classic pine resin and strong grapefruit kind of character as well. So yeah, really nicely presented, this one. You can see on the back there, Alesmith, hop Cypher, and it's a plain silver top on the can there. I can't actually remember how much I paid for this one. I want to say it was maybe about 60 Swedish kroner, so that is about about €6. Probably about just a little bit more than $6, $6.50 American, something like that. And this one apparently has been imported by Beer Deer into Sweden. So yeah, this should be pretty cool. But you can see the Other Half symbol at the bottom of the can there too. And there is the Alesmith symbol. So yeah, hop Cypher, a 6.5% West Coast IPA. Apparently this is 16 American ounces. But yeah, I don't like the way the Americans measure liquids. It makes no sense. Use the metric system, guys. It just is based on water, which is the universal solvent. Just do it. I mean, come on. Always say this, but yeah, I always get some smart arse who watches the channel for a long time. Some of my American subscribers always say, we want our freedom units. I love that. I do love that. It's great. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass and see what we have. A nice, proper, old school West Coast American IPA. I think that is enough for the moment for us to have a wee look at the colour of the beer and so on before we taste it. But yeah, I think we've maybe got about 3/4 of the beer out and into the glass. But yeah, as you can see, it has poured very, very nicely. So before the head disappears on this one, with about a 3/4 pour, we've got just under a 3/4 finger frothy, I would say perfect white head. And you can see there's a mix of you can see there's some smaller bubbles just on the top of the liquid there and a few bigger ones going further up. But it does look pretty nice, this one. This is one of the kind of brighter and more straw coloured West Coast IPAs that I've come across. So this is a lighter yellow one. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put into the beer will also affect the colour of it as well. But when it comes to IPAs, you don't often have to care about those latter two variables. But you can see this one is pretty crystal clear. There are one or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass and a few little ones going up toward the top of the head there. But overall, this beer is pretty damn crystal clear. Remember, the thing that gives New England IPAs the haze tends to be the oat and the wheat. But this one, just looking at this, West Coast IPAs can have a little bit of a natural haze to them from being unfiltered. But pretty sure this beer's been filtered just by looking at it. So yeah, I like how this one goes together. It certainly looks very, very nice. So I don't think we need to say anything more about the appearance of this beer. We can get on and have a wee look at the aroma and see what it gives us. Oh yeah, this is pretty nice and pretty much what you would expect from the West Coast IPA. Now for me, a West Coast IPA can kind of lean in two different directions. They can be more sort of biscuity and bready, such as the Pliny the Elder from Russian River Brewing, or they can be more oily and caramelly, such as the Torpedo from Sierra Nevada. I say those two because those are the two that really kind of showed me the two kind of ways that this style can lean. So those for me are the kind of benchmarks. For me, this one comes across as being more like a sort of Pliny the Elder, more biscuity and bready type West Coast IPA. But it has everything you would want in the aroma. I do get the impression from this one though that it's maybe more of a modern take on the West Coast IPA, because remember, back in the days these beers used to be like sort of 70, 80 IBUs. They used a lot of early edition hopping, whereas now, because of the emergence of the New England IPAs, it tends to be the case that hops, that more IPAs are relying on late edition and dry hopping, which are of course more responsible for flavour and aroma. Early edition hopping tends to be more responsible for bitterness. But yeah, I think out of the hops used in this one, probably Chinook is the bittering hop, and the other two, the Strata and the Mosaic, will be the late edition hop. But when we taste the beer, we will get an idea of what's been done in the brew process. But yeah, this one it's got a lovely bit of breadiness to it. You've got the sweetness in there, you've got a bit of the green component, you've also got the oily fruits. It gives you everything you want. But let's break it down and describe the aroma a little bit more in depth for you. So, yeah, backbone of the beer, you absolutely have a little bit of that kind of fresh white bready bread crust. That is the backbone. There are one or two little hints of a slightly woody character to it as well. But yeah, fresh white bread crust, a little bit of woodiness in there, fluffy white bread, and yeah, there's maybe a teeny little bit of a kind of wholemeal brown bready character in there as well. But yeah, I certainly like how this beer goes together in that sense. Above the brown bread, you've got a little bit more of a kind of sweet character to it as well. There's a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive sweetness in this one. I guess the Americans would really want to say it's got a sort of cookie aroma to it, but you certainly have. This beer actually, to me on the nose, it smells a little bit more boozy than it is. This is only 6.5% ABV, which is to me more akin to a New England IPA. For me, the West Coast IPAs were always a bit closer to 7. Feel free to correct me on that if your experience in the US is a bit different, but at least the European West Coast IPAs for me were always a bit closer to 7%. But yeah, you do get, the more that you smell this beer, you get a little bit of a sweeter caramel out of it. You've got the McVitie's digestive biscuit in there, and those slightly sweeter notes that come out are of course due to the to the booziness of the beer. But yeah, aroma-wise on the malty side of things, it does smell pretty good. So let's go to the green component and have a little look at that then. So for me, the green component of this beer, you can smell, I think there's a mix of early addition and late hopping going on here as well. So you can certainly smell a bit of the Chinook influence there. You get a little bit of that kind of deeper piney resin, and when the green component smells kind of deeper, that is usually an indicator of early addition hopping, whereas if it smells brighter, that is more, yeah, if you get the deep and dank characters, that's early addition hopping. If you get the brighter, more kind of zesty characters, that tends to be a little bit more coming from the late addition hopping. You certainly get a little touch of earthiness in this one though, which will be the mosaic out of the three. So a little bit of earthiness, certainly a good little bit of pine resin in there, but I get quite a bit of wet grassy character out of this one too, which I think will be the strata out of the three. So you can smell that all three hops in this one, I think, are contributing to the green component, but the green component certainly is not too prominent in this one, and that's another thing that tells me that this beer is maybe more relying on late addition and dry hopping than early addition hopping. But as long as the beer tastes good, it doesn't matter. It's always just nice to analyse it a little bit though. The main question should always be with a beer, does it taste nice? But aroma-wise, this is nice too. The fruity side of the beer is pretty much what you would expect. I don't think the Chinook is contributing too much to the fruitiness in this one, but certainly I'm getting quite a little bit of the melony character that I know you can expect from Strata. I'm getting a lot of melon in there. Definitely a little bit of the kind of juicy strawberry character as well. And there's also, you know, you have got a nice little bit of a tangerine orange to it too. I would have expected a little bit more grapefruit from the presence of the Chinook, and you can smell a little touch of it and a little tiny bit of passion fruit. But for me, it's the kind of wet melon note that comes out of this one from the Strata, and the red kind of strawberry, and also the nice juicy, kind of fruit, also the nice kind of juicy tangerine notes as well from the mosaic. So yeah, aroma wise, I have to say that this beer overall isn't the most pungent of West Coast IPAs that I've come across. The one thing we do have to remember is that when these beers come here to Sweden, they might not be in their freshest condition. But yeah, we'll just need to taste this one and see what it's all about. But it certainly does have a nice kind of juicy aroma, but it certainly strikes me as a more modern take on the West Coast IPA rather than being more old school, if that makes sense. So yeah, let's have a taste of this guy and see how we get on. See if we can get the rest of it into the glass. There's still a wee bit in there. We'll put the rest of it in a little bit, but yeah, let's have a taste of it and see. So this is the Hop Cypher, a 6.5% West Coast IPA brewed at Alesmith Brewing in San Diego in California in collaboration with Other Half Brewing in Brooklyn, New York. As I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma, but we're tasting this now. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, that is pretty nice. Okay, so I'm going to say straight off, what I was picking up from the aroma about this being a more, about this being more of a new take, a modern take on the West Coast IPA. That was definitely right. I would absolutely say that about this beer. It has got a little bit of bitterness though. It does show you a wee bit more of a bitter side the further into the aftertaste you go. So that's probably the Alesmith influence coming out of this one. But it certainly does look like a very, it certainly does taste like a very nice beer, this one. It's just nice and light and enjoyable, I have to say that. So thumbs up to both breweries with this one. But let's break it down and describe the flavour a wee bit more in depth. So, yeah, We'll start with this one in the middle of the palate, as we always do. So, middle third of your palate then, you can feel the backbone of this beer is you can feel the backbone of this beer has a little bit of that nice kind of grainy, bread crusty type quality to it. So yeah. So yeah, lovely little bit of a kind of fresh white bready bread crust forming the backbone of the beer, as I said there. Toward the front of that middle third of your palate, you do have a little touch of a kind of woody, character coming out of it too, which I think is pretty nice. On top of that kind of bread crusty layer, and I will say that bread crusty layer gets a little bit drier the further into the aftertaste that you go. On top of that, you've got a wee bit of a more, you've got a little bit of a more kind of crackery sort of thing coming out of it as well. There is a little bit of a kind of Jacob's cream cracker sort of note above the bread crust too, which is something that I normally pick up in New England IPAs, but it's kind of interesting that it comes out so much in this one. This beer is actually, when I think about it compared to other West Coast IPAs, it's actually a very light, wet and drinkable beer, but we'll come to that when we look at the mouthfeel. So yeah, above the kind of crackery side of the beer, above the kind of crackery part of the beer, you start to get some of the bready notes out of this one. So there is a layer of a fluffy, white bready character coming out of the beer. On top of that, you've got a little bit more of a kind of, you do have a little touch of a, you have a little touch of a kind of wholemeal, brown bready type character in there. So yeah, lovely little bit of a wholemeal, brown bready character as well, and you also have a little bit of a more above that, you do start to get a few other things. Like this beer actually, the more that you drink of it, it really does develop a little bit of graininess within the malt base, which is interesting. Normally for me, the American West Coast IPAs tend to be quite sweet. And I'm wondering, toward the back of that middle third of your tongue, there's a little bit of dryness, and I do wonder if this beer has a little touch of Pilsner malt in it, or something like that. It's like I say, you've got the brown bready character, then at the back of that middle third of your palate, you do start to get a little bit of a more kind of just dry Pilsnery malt type thing in there. So that's really interesting. So you've got the white bread in there, you've got the wholemeal bread above that, and then you start to get the kind of sweeter side of the malt base too. So in the middle of your palate, you get this little circle. So there's a layer of like, there's a layer of kind of, yeah, there is a layer of kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity character. Then above that, you do get a little bit of a kind of sweeter caramelly note. So in the dead centre of your palate, yeah, there's a sweeter caramelly note there. That's covering up most of the boozy side of this beer. And then as you move further out from that in the circle, you've got a little bit more of a McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. So yeah, I do like how that goes together. So yeah, the malty side of this one is quite nice, and I would say as well, the more that you drink of this, it does sweeten up a little bit, but then yeah, the further into the aftertaste you go, you start to get more of the kind of grainy, and you start to get more of the grainy and kind of Pilsnery notes out of the beer. So yeah, I do like how this goes together. So yeah, the middle third of your palate is really quite interesting. But yeah, let's go on to the back third of the palate then. I think we've said everything we need about that middle third of the palate. The border region between middle and back third of your palate, you've got a lovely little bit of kind of white bready build up in there. As I said earlier, you've got a little bit of an almost Pilsner malty dryness to it. But then, yeah, the back half, or the back third of your palate, sorry, brain is not working, back third of your palate, you can feel the grainy bread crusty characters are even drier in there. You've also got a little bit of a drier, more Jacob's cream crackery note sitting above that. And then you've got the bready layers. And for me, the bready layers are the same, but they're just taller and more airy. So you've got a tall, kind of airy white bready layer coming out of this one. Then you've got the more kind of, kind of wholemeal brown bready layer as well. And as I say, those are just taller, but then more airy. And above all of that, you start to get the yeasty notes. But remember, as I've said quite often, for me, quite often I find that on the back third of the palate, the flavour tends to be more kind of grainy and dry and stuff like this. More bitter flavours for me come out further back on the palate, sweeter flavours come out further forward. But yeah, a drier bread crust, a drier Jacob's cream cracker, a taller, more airy wholemeal bready layer, then a taller, more airy white bready layer, and then above all of that, you've got a little bit of a more kind of yeasty character coming out of this one, which I do like. So yeah, you've got that kind of honeycomb. You do have a little touch of that kind of honeycomby, yeasty character coming out of this beer for sure. Yeah, flavour wise on the back third of the palate, this is nice, but yeah, the back third of your palate, the flavour is definitely taller. Then as you come further forward into the middle third of the palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together. And like I said, it is pretty nice in that regard. But yeah, so on the hoppy side of things, I think we said everything we need about the malty and yeasty side of the beer. The green component first. In the back corners of the palate, you definitely get a little bit of earthiness in there, and for me that's most likely to come from the mosaic in this beer, and it feels like quite a light and smooth earthiness. So I think that's more likely to have come from dry hopping and from late addition or dry hopping, I should say. Remember, late addition hopping happens within the last half hour of your wort boil. Dry hopping happens after the wort boil is complete. So as you move further forward along the sides of your palate there, you'll get a little touch of a herbal character, and as you push towards the kind of front corners of your palate, you've got a little bit more of a kind of pine resiny note in there, and that's going to be the Chinook that's giving you that in there, and you can feel that that's quite deep and quite dank, so that's most likely due to early addition hopping. That's within the first hour of your wort boil. You've got more heat time in there, so you extract more stuff from the hops with early addition hopping, so that's responsible for bitterness. You can feel that nice kind of deeper, danker bitterness in there from this one, but this is certainly not the most dank of West Coast IPAs that you're going to come across. As you reach the front corners of the palate though, you've got a little bit of a more kind of floral aromatic sort of thing in there, and round the front curve of your palate, the beer is certainly a little bit lighter and grassier and more kind of zesty in a sense too. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together, I think, is really quite nice from the green component side of things. Like I say, it's just, for me, it's quite a light, drinkable West Coast IPA. But let's focus on that front half of your, the front third of your palate. I keep doing that in this video. Let's focus on the front third of your palate and the fruity side of things. So yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of a bready build up in there, you can feel that. And the base of the front third of your palate is more kind of, again, you've got a little bit of the kind of bread, you've got a little bit of the bread crust in there, but then you've got the smooth white bread, and then you have that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. At the back of that front third of your palate, you've got a little bit more of a kind of stronger grapefruity note out of this one. And then as you move further forward, you do get a little touch of an oily passion fruit out of it. And I'm curious, I think that's probably likely to come from, the grapefruit will come from the Chinook, I think. But the passion fruit probably is coming from the strata. But then as you move forward in the back half of that front third of your tongue, it gives you more of a kind of melon type quality, which I do really quite enjoy. So yeah, I think the strata shows its head quite well in this one. But yeah, a little bit of Chinook grapefruit, but then yeah, a little touch of oily passion fruit in there, and then an oily melon. But as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, it starts to change to a more tangerine orangey type quality, and that's the mosaic that's going to give you that. And as you reach the sort of front tip of your tongue, you get a little bit more. As you reach the front tip of your tongue, you get a little bit of a more kind of strawberry, juicy type quality coming out of this one, which I certainly quite enjoy as well. So yeah, I love the kind of wet, strawberry, juicy type note that comes out of this beer. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together for me on the fruity side of things, I think is very, very nice. So yeah, gets a big thumbs up from me. Sorry about the edit there, guys. My camera ran out of memory, so I still had a bunch of reviews that I'd already uploaded sitting there, so deleted them. But there we go. Anyway, we were just about to talk about the mouthfeel of this one then. We just rounded off with the with talking about the fruity side of the beer. So yeah, lovely little bit of tangerine and strawberry in the front half of that front third of your palate. But yeah, let's round off this review with a wee look at the mouthfeel then. So as I've said a few times in this video, for me, this beer is actually a very light and drinkable West Coast IPA. So I would say that this one, it's probably mid-bodied, right in the middle of the spectrum. Yeah, so the carbonation is really nice and smooth in this one. It's quite a wet mouthfeel overall. I would say there is a little touch of oily character in there, but not too much. In terms of IBUs, I think we're talking about 50-ish IBUs with this one, maybe 60 at a push. It's certainly not going to blow the head off you in terms of its bitterness, and it's nowhere near the kind of 80 IBU, 90 IBU that you would get from these beers back in the day. This is most definitely more of a kind of modern take on the West Coast IPA, that's for sure. But yeah, in terms of the kind of malty side of this beer, like we said, it's got a good little bit of graininess. You've got a bit of smoothness from the bread in there in the middle. You've also got a little bit of sweetness to it. This beer mellows out really nicely the more that you drink of it. The green component has a good little bit of dankness to it, which you expect from the style, but it's also got a little bit of kind of freshness and zestiness and stuff too. And then you've got the lovely oily fruity characters coming out of this one too. So yeah, the way this beer goes together, I think, is really, really nice. So the beer gets a big thumbs up from me. Nice to have a West Coast IPA again, because like I said, there aren't too many of them kicking about just now. But yeah, I think this has been a very nice one to try. So this was the Hop Cypher, a West Coast IPA at 6.5% ABV from Alesmith Brewing Company in San Diego in California, in collaboration with Other Half Brewing from Brooklyn in New York on the East Coast. So yeah, I really enjoyed reviewing this one. Always nice to do something a wee bit different, and definitely nice to feature these two breweries on the channel once again, especially together too. So yeah, thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from Alesmith and from Other Half. We will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the near future. But until then, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys again very, very soon. So check out my social media, check out the brewery's social media. If you can, have a go at this beer. You won't be disappointed with this one if you like a good old school, kind of more biscuity bready leaning West Coast IPA. So until the next time, slange it, skull, cheers, see you guys very, very soon.